Okay, so your thinking muscles, tense them. Right. So two kinds of images, therefore. Maybe there are more kinds. Maybe we can discover another kind. But there are at least two kinds of images that we already have on the table. And as we said, it is basically one image that can do these different functions. So on one hand, to keep it brutally simple, an image can be a document of something. It can be a truthful record of something, like a picture for the passport photo. Yeah. On the other, it can be a fantasy. Yeah. Fantasy is a phantasm, is simulacra. It can be a simulation. Yeah. What else can it be? A true depiction, let's say a document. One. Fantasy is another. Is that all there is? Or are there any other forms for images? Do we have anything else apart from fantasies and true depictions?
Reality as well.
We have reality. Yeah, but we try to talk about images.
Oh.
Yeah. So some images are, let's say, documents. You just imagine this ideal document, which is just like.
But the reality is also images. You are an image, so you are a reality. So you are. Or
Very
not.
good, very good. But hello, hi.
Or paper image. That's not.
Yes. This is true. However, however, let's just talk about images for a second. Images like, what do you have here? Yeah, okay. Excellent. Yeah. So, what is this? Okay. What is this?
Train.
Yes, but this picture. It's a portrait of Nietzsche, yeah? Photographic portrait, by the way. So Nietzsche is one of the first philosophers who actually got also a photograph. Yeah? Because he lived during the time when photography became popular. So, so this can be a document, yeah? It can also be a fantasy. My question is, can it be also something else? Right. It can be both. But do we know any other forms? So, okay, so some stories, I think images it's just too early in the morning for you to think about images. They think about literature, okay, or language. So there are some stories which tell you things as they happen. Yeah? So for instance, the story of the First World War, get it in the book, yeah? Now there are some stories that tell you about things that never happened. Yeah? Like, fantasy books. Okay? Is there anything else? Or is that all there is? Do we only have these two genres? Maybe I'm not asking you the question. Maybe the question is wrong.
There is mermaids, they mix.
They mix. Yeah. And what we get when they mix, What is, for instance, a novel by Dickens? You read some Dickens? Yeah? So what, is it a document or is it a fantasy? Yeah, and yet, we call him a realist. Yeah? But it's not like he describes what actually happened. But he uses the materials from that we recognize as belonging to reality. But he puts them together in different ways. So all I kind of wanted you to kind of think about that with photography or with images of any kind, with cinema, there are also several approaches. So there is the documentary or the let's say the imprint, something like a death mask. So that's one approach. Then there is another approach which is the fantasy. And then there are storytelling. There are images that tell stories which can have factitious elements and fantastical elements. But it's all somehow all of these possibilities are available in every image. Now, where Nietzsche comes into that is the point. Before we get into Nietzsche, what you could do is to go to your own practice and somehow hiding and somehow ask whether your practice, whatever images it uses, whether it is using them in a fantastical way, in a realist way, or in a mixture of both. Yeah. Sorry? Fantastical, realist, or a kind of combination of both. Yeah. And once you start thinking about it, you can also investigate whether it is possible to exaggerate the play between these elements in your work. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter what kind of images you are working on. So for instance, Michelle, if you are working with sense or with smell, that also could be quite interesting. Do smells always have to be related to something real? Or maybe some smells can be completely artificial, like sort of fantastic. Yeah, not originating from a flower, you know, or I don't know, from a perfume, but somehow just happening by themselves in some way.
I have one company that I work with makes dragon breath.
Great. Yeah. So that would be simulacra. Dragon breath smell. That would be simulacra. Yeah. By the way, what we didn't do, because people were coming in drips and drabs, is to go around the table and just introduce yourselves and say in one sentence, what are you working on right now? Are you ready?
Yeah. My name is Irene, and I am working on digital emotions.
I'm Valentina, and I'm trying to understand how to remove tattoo from my skin.
How to remove?
Fake tattoos from my skin.
Okay.
With glitter. Yeah.
My name is Simona, and I'm creating an artificial hell.
Okay. Good.
My name is Michelle, and I've been working on smell, specifically the smell keyboard that relates music to scent.
And just tell us what course you're on.
I'm a art science.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sasha, and right now I'm trying to use curating as a method for writing poetry.
And I just want to say that Sasha finally managed to transfer to CSM, and she is now here a PhD student. So welcome, Sasha. You are soon. You will have car. You will have soon your own car. Okay.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'm working on virtual reality. I'm being here at the same time now.
Okay. Is that what happens now with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So not you.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
Hi, I'm Dean. I just finished the TV show. I just think about what I'm going to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent. Emily.
Oh, hi, I'm Emily, working on imaginary infections. I'm working on
Madness.
bodiness.
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 Okay. Great.
I'm Natalia, and I'm working on installation with salt.
Okay. With
Salt.
installation with salt.
Yes.
Nice.
My name is Matilde, and I'm working on thoughts and reality, how thoughts, personal thoughts can change reality, the way we see it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Max.
Hello, I'm Max, and I'm playing on different formats between the analog world and the digital.
Okay. Captain.
I'm Catherine, and I'm embracing my inner dancer.
Inner
Dancer.
daughter. Dancer. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Inner dancer.
Yeah.
That's good. I have an essay about that. If you're interested, drop me an email. I'll send it to you. Ben?
And then I'm working on reclaiming the space via reflection.
Hi, reclaiming?
Reclaiming the space via reflection.
Via reflection. Okay, thank you very much. Marianne?
Yes, I'm Marian, finance inmate. I'm working on the clinic. I have had it stand around for about 2 weeks.
Yes.
It's very big. It's the biggest I've ever done, and I finally put something done.
Thank you very much. Lucrezia?
I'm Lucrezia and I'm working on threesomes.
On?
Threesomes?
Threesomes. Okay, good. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Vishal. Working on two things. One, finding a way to not go back to India. And two, I just came across an archive of free footage on the internet, so I'm sort of playing with that and trying to create an illusion for the scholarship.
About not going back to India, did you speak with TJ, who was here last year?
Yeah, but TJ has been busy, so I have to check with him again.
Yeah, because he had similar issues. Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Vinicius. I'm working on memories and how it's interacted with the materiality of photography.
Good, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nina and I'm working, no, I'm questioning my identity.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Timo. I'm trying to overlap the present space
Yeah.
with two-dimensional memory to photographic memory.
Yeah. Two-dimensional memory?
Photographic memory.
Okay, great.
I'm Alexandra. I'm working on creating a fake process.
Fake process. Fake process does what? Very mysterious. Okay.
How about you?
How about me?
What are you working on?
You cannot be serious. Well, okay. What I'm working on. Yeah, I can tell you. I have a. My name is Daniel, and I have a symposium next Friday at LCC. I don't know if you got a note about that, but if not, I will send it around. There will be. Did you read about it? There is a symposium. It's called Network Systems or something like that. And I'm going to talk about my paper is going to be called Fractal Economy of Photography, or the place where icons and algorithms meet. So I'm talking in the very end of this day. It's all Friday from 10 to 6 or something. Next week. It will be great if you come, because I always feel that going to LCC is a very different world. So seeing some familiar faces is always very nice. It will be great to see you then. So see if you can make it. Okay, we're all here. Welcome everyone. It's really good to go back to the seminars. Unfortunately, next Wednesday we're not going to have a seminar because I'm in Madrid. I have to. I'm giving a paper at the Foto España. But we need to investigate whether it might be possible to have a seminar on Tuesday without that overlapping with David's session. Yeah. What do you do?
I can come to
No. Well,
Maybe we
no.
can change David to Monday.
No, I don't think. I'm not sure, but he hasn't told us we have anything on Tuesday. We have something on Monday.
Yeah, Monday we have to go to the garden.
Can I ask? Can anyone ask David about it
Not me.
and write
I'm not
back to
gonna
me?
be here.
For instance, Ben, could you do that?
No, I'm not going to be here.
I will.
Could you do it? If you could find out with David, because say if he has, if
He sent us a mail this morning saying he would last committee meet to bring us to
if it is possible, could one of you write to him, preferably today, whether it is possible either to do this meeting in the afternoon, or basically if we can have Tuesday morning. And if we can, then we will do the session on Tuesday. I prefer not to miss a session.
Yeah.
If it is not possible, it's not a big deal. We can always do some extra sessions after the end of term, if you're around. Yeah.
We'll be there anyway. We'll just say we can't make Tuesday.
Sorry?
We'll be here. We can do it.
No. It needs to be in a way that no one gets.
Because we can do another time with David. There's more flexibility.
Yeah,
I
but
think the only problem
we need to find out if whether this crashes with his plans or not. And if it does, then of course we cannot do that. You know, that it's but if it is just let's say some meetings, then they can take place in the afternoon, or if they have to be in the morning, we cannot do the session in the afternoon. But if Tuesday is already taken, we just do it some other day. Okay, so if someone could find out and come back. Okay, are we ready to begin? So, Nietzsche. I was just trying to make a little link, not very successfully, between the discussion of simulacra that we had in the running over a few weeks and the issue of why we read Nietzsche. And the answer I want to propose is what Nietzsche suggests, or the way Nietzsche compels us to read him, is not going to make sense if we don't take on board the notion of simulacra. You could somehow say that with Nietzsche, simulacra acquires, begins to acquire its right place in thinking and philosophy. And we try to get into that. So looking at this really strange book he wrote just before he gone completely mad. And the book is called Ecce Homo, or Ecce Homo. Now can someone remind us what is the title referring to? What is Ecce Homo?
Behold the man.
Behold the man. Where is it from?
New Testament.
It's from the New Testament. Who says that? Pontius Pilate. That's right. Yeah, Pontius Pilate. So the governor of Judea, the Roman governor of Judea, at the time of 2015 years ago, allegedly. When Jesus of Nazareth was brought before Pontius Pilate for a trial, he said, Ecce Homo, they spoke Latin, which means, behold the man. Yeah? So that's how Nietzsche, that's the title Nietzsche gives to his autobiography. How do you understand that? What does it mean? Who is in the Bible Ecce Homo? Who is the man? Jesus is the man. Yeah. So Nietzsche calls his book Ecce Homo. In a sense, he says, I am Jesus. Yeah. Now, well, mental asylums are full of people who say that they're Jesus or Napoleon or Kissinger. There's lots of that. So, so on one hand, yeah, that's just mad talk. That's mad speaking. Yeah, but keep in mind what we said earlier about simulacra, and see if that helps, if it gives any sense to the proceedings. Ecce Homo, how to become what you are, or in another translation, how to become what one is. That is the key. How do you become who you are? Now, maybe you are, we spoke about it last time, I know I'm repeating myself, but I think it is important to somehow remind ourselves what we were talking about. You are an artist. You know that you are an artist. You have this itch in your fingers that tells you that you want to do things, You have these images in your head that really need to be made into forms, into shapes, into situations, into encounters. So you are an artist. But Nietzsche says, this is not enough. You also need to become this artist. Yeah? It's not enough to know that that's what you want to do. You also need to somehow become it. Yeah? And the trick of this becoming is that when you become, you don't really know where is it taking you. That's what the book is about. It's basically It's like a self-help manual about how to look after yourself, how to take care of yourself, how to take care of the artist within. And Nietzsche says, well, this is a really difficult task. It's a precarious job. Everything is stuck against you. Everything is stuck, so you will never discover who you are. So what he proposes in this book is a complete reversal of the usual values. Now, Nietzsche is a philosopher, and this is his autobiography. Now, I don't know how many autobiographies of philosophers you have read, but what you imagine an autobiography of a philosopher will be about? What do you imagine an autobiography of a scientist would be about? Of a general? Yeah? It will be about, you know, sort of the conquests, the inventions, the work. Yeah?
Maybe also linear.
It will be probably linear, yeah, and it will probably be about, you know, the books I read, the people I met, you know, the great influences they had on me, you know, things like that. Now, in Nietzsche, you will not find anything of that sort, as you will see in a minute. Nietzsche says, if you want to become an artist, or if you want to become what you are, the first and most important question you need to deal with, do you know what it is? The first question is what to eat. The key to being an artist is your diet. Now it sounds kind of new agey, and in a sense quite contemporary, yeah. But he's absolutely serious. He says if you eat the wrong foods, you will be lethargic, you will not have energy, you will be sort of stodgy. You basically will be a couch potato. Yeah? So, find the foods, he says, find the foods that give you energy. Find the foods that are right for you. And it's not, there is no universal logic. It's not like if we all eat oats in the morning, then we will be, you know, we'll have lots of energy. It might be oats for you, it might be fruit for someone else, it might be coffee and cigarettes for another person, you know. But you need to find. No, I'm absolutely serious. You need to find what works for you. You know, it might be tequila in the morning, you know, but whatever it takes, you know. And he says that it begins from somehow being able to listen to your body, to notice your organism, and to realize what gives you power, what gives you energy, and what weakens you, what takes energy away. That becomes the key question in this Nietzschean philosophy of existence. You know, what encounters in life give you strength? What encounters in life weaken you? You know, that becomes the criterion. Question? Now, let me just show you. I skipped because I got so excited, but let me show you where he gets into that. We first go to the diet, and then we go back. Can you read it highlighted in this very strange way? Or should I remove the highlight?
Read it.
Yeah,
Why do we have the D apart of the
Daniel.
no, it's just because it is not a perfect PDF, so it has some things that the highlight doesn't recognize. But I can remove it. Okay. Coming. Right. Unfortunately, I cannot remove the highlight because I done it on the iPad. It's idiotic, really. can you read, can someone read from this? We are, by the way, on page 85 of the Oxford edition. Do you have this? I can put it on Dropbox for you. Do you have it? Yeah? Do you have the text, guys?
No.
None of you? Okay, let me save it in the Dropbox. You have it. It is in the Dropbox. Just go and open it from there. You could email me for a link to the Dropbox where we keep all our texts. Yeah, and if you, Marianne, do you have the link?
Yes.
Okay, it's in Dropbox. Yeah, it's called ACCS. Okay, can someone read from another question interests me as much in a different way?
I will read.
You will read, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, hello, we are reading Nietzsche. So,
Hello?
Go ahead.
Can you make it... another question interests me in a much different way. The question of nutrition, the salvation of humanity, is more dependent on this question than on any theological oddity. We can formulate it in rough and ready terms. What do you yourself eat in order to achieve the maximum of strength, of virtue in the style of the Renaissance, of moral free virtue? My experiences here
let's
are...
stop here for a second. Do you hear what he says here? It's really important. He says, the fate of humanity is dependent much more on what you eat, on what we eat, than on our ideas or theology. Yeah? Now, I just want you to hear first how even now it sounds radical, and that is already 140 or 150 years since that was written. Yeah? Even now, but imagine how radical that could have sounded in the end of the 19th century. Yeah? He says, it's not religion, it's not science, it's not logic, it's not thinking that determines the course of humanity, it's what we eat. Yeah? And that comes from a philosopher, not from a nutritionist. Yeah? If it was the opening sentence of a kind of a fad diet, you could understand that. Yeah? But it comes from the hand of a thinker, of a philosopher. And the thinker tells you it's not thinking that matters, it's what you eat. Yeah? So this is a little bit interesting. Okay. So he says, what do you... The very key is what do you yourself eat in order to achieve the maximum of strength. Yeah? So what you eat is, and it really sounds like one of these seminars when they promise you, that they will change your life or something. But what you eat is related to the strength you have. Yeah? So if you eat the things that agree with you, that are right for you, you will be stronger. And if you eat things which are not right for you, you will be weaker. So how do you know what to eat? Yeah? In a while, Nietzsche will give some very clear hints, some very, very good pointers. But also, I want you to somehow hear that this is a really hilarious book. It's very, very funny way to write one's autobiography. It's like, Well, do you want to know my autobiography? Well, I'm going to tell you what I eat. You know, it's almost, you feel that everything is turning upside down. You know, we are so used to put the intellect, thoughts, ideas, concepts above the practice of everyday life. You know, we're so used to privilege our thinking abilities over, let's say, our digestive abilities. And Nietzsche is saying, well, no, it's not like that. It is almost the other way around.
But don't you think that he is talking in a metaphor way?
He is talking he definitely talks in metaphors, and he really not proposing here a kind of diet.
Exactly.
But where he is absolutely serious is when he says it's not ideas that will determine the course of humanity, but what you eat. But when he says what you eat, it doesn't really mean that it is about the food on your plate. He says we need to turn things around. We need to stop placing ideas and thoughts and concepts and representation above, or let them dominate the physicality, the body. You can see how this is also a political agenda. Yeah, it's an agenda that says the body, its needs, its desires, the way it is in the world, is just as valued, or maybe even more important than the thoughts.
So against Platonism.
Completely against Platonism. Very good. Yes, this is Nietzsche's attack on idealism. It is against idealism. What is idealism? Very briefly, we spoke about it in the past. What is idealism? What word idealism is coming from? Ideal. Yeah. Okay. What is idealism? Anyone? Anyone wants to hazard a guess? What is idealism, Max? No? I thought you just did something with your hand. So.
To put an ideal in something, like this thing is perfect.
Yeah. It's good, but it's not the complete answer. Let me give you the complete answer, or an answer. But listen carefully. Is it fine? That's fine. Yeah. What is idealism? Idealism says that ideas are real, and the real isn't real. So, idealism says this book is not real, but the idea of a book is real. Yeah? So, idealism has another name, which is realism. You might think that idealism and realism are opposites. No, they are the same thing. It's difficult to wrap your head around it, but that is the crazy framework within which we live our lives. It is crazy, but it is true. Idealism, and we are all idealists, all of us, apart from maybe one or two people here. Most of us are idealists because we were born and raised within this philosophical and cultural tradition, according to which ideas are the really real thing, and what we normally consider real, like your flask, this table, my book, this cup, they are sensations. We know about them because we can feel them, but we really have no way of knowing whether they are really here or not. You know, I might be dreaming. Yeah? So, this is idealism. Idealism puts ideas above or at the top of the pyramid. Ideas are the truly real things. So, people who operate with ideas generally earn more money than people who operate with bricks or stones or pieces of wood or, you know, whatever. That's basically how it works, you know. The example we always give here, which I need another one, but that's one I have so far, is that both the architect and the builder both build a house, and yet the architect seems to have a much higher social status than the builder. Why? Because the architect works with ideas, and the builder works with the hands. Yeah. This is a yes.
You could say, I want to bring a point, you could say it is similar thing about a certain, I guess, movement or, well, even CSM, artists.
Yes.
It's very ideas based.
Yes.
When if we build something, technicians do it.
Yes. Good. Good. And you could say that as long as we have in the university, in an art school, the hierarchy in which the academics are hierarchically and salary-wise above the technicians, and both the academics and the technicians above the people who serve us coffee and clean the street and make sure the toilets are clean. As long as we have this hierarchy, our art will always be somehow infected by this hierarchy. Yeah? And if we wanted to have a truly revolutionary political artwork, we would need to design a horizontal art school. And I once wrote a proposal for an art school in which everyone is doing everything, in which the students and the staff do the cleaning, and the students and the staff make the bread and make the curry, and everything as a work of art. Yeah? So your project for next week might be baking 200 loaves of bread. And that will be your installation, that will be your art. So not to have this distinction that some people wear black t-shirts and they are just responsible for cleaning, and others, as you say, think about things. So and that's a valid point. But that's what I'm saying. This notion of idealism is inherently foundational to the way our existence is organized. This is not universal. Many times both Ebony and Vishal made comments along the lines that this is specifically typical of a Western or westernized society. And this is absolutely true. Not all societies are based on this framework. Yes?
Just a question, because this idea of horizontal art school, is it somehow related to Yanni's position for anti-state capture?
It is very good, yeah. It is related to Guattari's anti-psychiatry movement.
It sounds like an amazing idea. I'd love to be there, but it also sounds a bit dangerous. Really dangerous.
What is the danger?
It goes a bit out of control.
But it's out of control now.
Um,
Now, this is out of control. You go to a supermarket and you've got 5 security guards employed, so people don't steal food who are homeless.
But yet they have free food.
You've got all the properties and so forth. So that's out of control to me, just because it doesn't affect you. You've got the comfort. What about the people on the street?
Well, first, I think you're right, Sasha. It is dangerous. You're also right. It might not be the greatest danger. And it is dangerous, either way. I mean, this kind of attempts to rethink the art school used to happen in the past, but yeah, it would be amazing if we did something like that. What was his name? Lang? Okay.
And it basically found many lots of experiments, and some of them are still following, where it tried exactly to do that, where people were doing everything, so they made and they made a lot of things between art and anarchy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's very interesting.
Really like, students made clinics and
Do you know what nationality was it? What country?
I think French, but I'm not sure.
Well, that would be really interesting
Or
to follow up.
American, I don't remember.
Well, if someone wants, for instance, to take that as a theme for the research project, that would be very interesting to write about. the possibility of a horizontally organized art school. Joseph Beuys, the artist, I think, developed some thinking along these lines when he said that everyone is an artist. By which he didn't mean that everyone has to pay, but he meant that you can bake bread or you can make curry as a work of art. Yes?
In the Bauhaus as well.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Boys got fired.
Sorry?
Boys got fired from the academy.
Oh yeah, of course. That's how you know that you're doing the right thing.
But even the art world reacted very negatively. Was it like for the previous documentary when the chef was knighted on the rights of the artist? This was like lots of criticism, like if we call cooking art then everything art, what's the point of making a documentary? Let's just keep on doing our stuff and finding big hits with title art if everything is art.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, of course, there will be criticism. Shimon?
There is a new alternative art school apparently in Hackney.
Right.
That's being made, I can't remember what it was, where is it? That's in reaction to what's happening in the art schools. It's
Very
free.
interesting. Is it free?
Yes, completely free.
Wow.
It's run by artists. So if you're an artist, you have to give a certain amount of time to teach art
Yeah.
for free.
Interesting. Yeah. I know that there are some alternative small art schools, and I mean, it would be great to continue this conversation, not now, but I mean, if that is something we could even trial as an experiment, even for a couple of days, as a model, even like in the street or something like that, if you would be up for it, let's say for next semester, next year, to pilot something like this, would be really fantastic. So, how did we get it? We spoke about idealism. Now, yes?
I'm still questioning about statement that like the Western world is based on ideology.
Idealism.
Sorry. And the reason that architecture is more than the builder is because ideas are more important.
Yes.
It doesn't really make sense.
Why?
Because I think last time I mentioned supply and demand. The things are priced higher is because they are rare. It's not because they are important or hard. Like air is important, but it's free. So, like I assume that everybody wants to earn more, but maybe somebody doesn't. But just assume this. So why don't all of us go to be architects, not the builder? Because simply most people can't. So it's simply.
But couldn't you also say that most people cannot be built? I mean, it's true that it takes a special person to be an architect, but it also takes a special person to be a builder.
Yeah, but it's less hard.
What?
To be a builder.
What? It's different kind of strength. It's different kind of effort. Because
It's
it wants
simply
you.
because there are more builders than architectures, and architectures earn more. That's why.
So do you
it's
think?
just based on the fact.
It's
It's
not
not
for the economic.
But then why then? Okay, so maybe that explains. That might explain why a builder, why architect earns more than a builder. But then why you would rather invite an architect to your dinner party than a builder? And I don't mean you, but generally, why the architect enjoys much higher cultural status, social status than the builder?
because there are less people.
Is that but maybe that's not also the whole answer. Maybe it's not just a question of supply and demand. And perhaps the example of the builder and the architect is a flawed example. All examples are flawed. But I'm just trying to get you to realize that in the society we live in automatically privileges ideas over doing or making, or what is called pragma, or the thing you do with your hands. The notion of the builder is just one example. But why, for instance, technicians have a lower status in the academia than lecturers? Is it because it is easier? I mean, yeah, you can of course say that this is kind of the market determines everything, but then you have to take the market as the determining factor. Yeah, and it gets a little complicated. No, I don't want to get into that too much. And you don't need to accept the example of the builder and the architect if you don't like it. But the general notion that we believe our mind, we tend to put more trust in thoughts than in experience. That we tend to comprehend things intellectually rather than learning about them by doing. Does that make sense?
I think we can carry on.
Okay. Okay. But see what, okay, well, I think maybe the answer is really in Nietzsche. Because Nietzsche is saying, you know, the salvation of humanity is much more dependent on this question of nutrition than on any theological oddity. Yeah? Theological oddity means religion, philosophy, ideas, politics. Nietzsche is saying nutrition is much more important. Yeah? And normally we think in exactly the opposite way. Yeah? So let's see what else he says here. Now let's read a bit from that. Simona, can you carry on from this? How to ruin your stomach?
How to ruin your stomach for the sake of inadequate nutrition. The aforementioned cuisine seemed like the perfect solution to this problem. It is said that 1866 changed all this.
Yeah.
But German cooking in general, what doesn't it have on its conscience? Soup before the meal, 16th century Venetian cookbooks still refer to this a la tedesca. Overcooked meats, vegetables cooked with fat and flour, the denigration of starchy foods into paperweights. Just add to this the almost brutal post-prandial drinking habits of the ancient, but by no means only the ancient, Germans, and you will also understand the origin of German spirit from depressive intestines. German spirit is indigestion. It is never, though, with anything, through with anything. But my own instincts are profoundly opposed to the English diet too, which in comparison with the German and even the French is a type of return to nature, namely to cannibalism. It seems to me that it gives spirit heavy feet, the feet of an Englishwoman. The best cuisine is from Piedmont. What's Piedmont?
Piedmont, I think it's Italy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have no idea what kind of cuisine is there, but.
It's really good.
Huh?
It's really good.
It's really good. Okay.
Well,
Now.
no?
Italy, where you have cookbooks in the post office.
What do you think is being said here? What do you think this is about? What Simona just read to us. What do you hear in your mind, in your head? What do you think Nietzsche is talking about?
Social structures.
Sorry?
Social structures.
Social?
Structures.
No.
He,
He's saying, look at that, 1 second. He's saying, he starts with the Germans. So what is the German diet, he says? Overcooked meats, these stodgy, starchy foods, all cooked with fat, yeah? On top of that, loads of beer, yeah? What it makes you? It makes you kind of lethargic, yeah? It also means that you, well, I'm glad you are laughing, because this is really funny. I think this is just one of the funniest books ever written. So not only, so you basically eat this like concrete that sits in your stomach, you know, and then you have to digest it for hours and hours and hours. Before you finish digesting it, you have another meal coming. So all your life energy goes onto digesting this heavy, starchy food. The paperweights. And then he says, German spirit is indigestion. It is never through with anything, yeah, because it's always somehow it's so clogged and overloaded the digestive tract that you all the time have to be dealing with this thing. Now, and this is a great example. This is a great description of German philosophy, because he really writes about German philosophy. He says, well, German philosophy is idealistic, like in Hegel. It is dialectical. What is dialectical? Is thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Okay, you go to synthesis, then synthesis becomes a thesis, then another antithesis, another synthesis. And you're never done with it. You always go from A to B to get to C, but then the C becomes another A, and then you have another opposite, which is a B, and another C. So you all the time go between this on one hand and on the other hand, and something. And then that becomes on one hand, then on the other hand. Yeah? So this movement, which we discussed in the past, which is called dialectics, he says, well, they think like that, the Germans, because they eat like that. Because they can never finish digesting. They always suffer from either constipation or diarrhea. They're always in between, you know, either you have the, so, constipation, the thesis, diarrhea, the antithesis, you know, and these things just never stop. So he, in a sense, he teases out the essence of German philosophy, German idealistic philosophy, out of the way people eat. Does he mean it's serious? Is he for real? What do you think?
I think it's quite arbitrary.
He is
Quite arbitrary.
arbitrary. In what way?
One example is South of Italy, people who are not eat.
Wait. Let's don't go to Italy yet. We will come to Italy.
Also, if we think about the fact that the lightness, the lightness of the body was an element of emancipation since medieval society, you know. So there is a kind of this idea is what I read inside it. I mean, don't eat like or this heavy food make you bad.
Yeah.
It's like make you impure.
Yeah.
But I think it's wrong. Not wrong. In my vision,
It's more, how do you feel when you go to Germany and you have what's the sausage and the thing? You feel for 3 days you can't do anything.
It's not necessarily bad. I mean, it depends.
Well, no,
on the
maybe it gives you
use.
strength. But this is what he says.
It's not as well as you say. For me, maybe it's more
As an example.
heavy wanted.
Like for instance, Eastern Europe is a good example because it has a very
Yeah, but
simple
even the
diet.
nutrition. It says we are our nutrition, so it's like if you eat a lot, you are unworth person, kind of.
No, Maria, you need to bear in mind what he said here. You see, when he said that, what do you yourself eat in order to achieve maximum strength? Yeah, that's the point, you know. And he says that, as an example, that the German diet makes you weak. It makes you weak, it makes you lethargic. Yeah? He compares it to the Italian diet. Now, we could also compare it to Asian diets, for instance, you know. And you can just tell, you know, if you eat a Chinese meal, then you don't feel, you know, that you need to go and have a nap. Yeah? Okay. Now, okay, guys. Oh, suddenly everybody's awake suddenly, you know, that's great, you know. Let's talk about food more often. Look, it is not, it is not about food. It is not about food. What it is about, that is my question.
what is coming to you is, for instance, that you have too much information about something, you are not gonna assimilate it. You are recharging.
It's about how do you become who you are? How do you become an artist? How do you really maximize your potential? How you become what you can be? And Nietzsche says, start with what you eat. And he says, if you eat stodgy, heavy diet, so much of your energy will be wasted on digestion. You will not have the energy to go to the studio and paint. You will not have the energy to sit to your table and write, or to shoot a movie, or to write a script, or whatever, because you will be just digesting. So he says, start from considering that. Now, he really not a dietitian. He is not suggesting here a kind of recipe for what you need to eat to be creative. It's not about that. Some people do that, but that's not what he does. He just says, don't begin with ideas, begin with the material conditions of your existence. And so the first one is what you eat. Now, this is the second section I also I think is quite important. The alcoholic drinks are bad for me. Could someone read that? Please, Vishnu.
Alcoholic drinks are bad for me. One glass of wine or beer in the course of a day is more than enough to turn my life into a whale of tears. My antipodes are in Munich.
Who are antipodes? My opposite. So, and what is Munich? Is the beer festival, yeah? It's a lot of beer. So, he says, this is my opposite. Okay, carry on.
Since I was a little late in understanding this, I really experienced it from the time I was a child. When I was a boy, I thought that drinking wine, like smoking tobacco, started off just as a vanity of young men and became a bad habit later. Perhaps the number of wine is partly to blame for this harsh judgment. I would need to be a Christian to think of wine as a stimulant, which is to say, I would need to believe something I find absurd.
I love this sentence. Don't you think it's great? I will need to be a Christian to find wine as a stimulant. Why is that? What do you think? Why? How do you hear that? What does it say here? Yeah. It's the Mass, the communion, or the Eucharist, I think it's called, isn't it? When you drink the wine, it becomes the blood. So it says, I will need to be a Christian to think of wine as stimulant. Because wine... Why Jesus? Who said Jesus?
I said Jesus.
Yeah, how? Why?
No, I think it's more than that. I think it's really, there's so much sarcasm.
Yes.
So
There is a lot of sarcasm, you're right. And first it says here that to be a Christian means to believe something that is absurd. That wine can turn into blood and things like that. But also to think of wine as a stimulant, as something that stimulates you, like a sort of red, He says it is also absurd because wine makes you lethargic. Now, carry on please from here.
Strangely enough, given my extreme susceptibility to small doses of strongly diluted alcohol, I'm practically a sailor when it comes to
to strong doses. You found it on the next page?
To strong doses. Even as a boy, this was a
okay. That we can skip because he just talks about how he used to get drunk and write these Latin essays. Just showing off really. But let's just start from here. Later, of course,
towards the middle of my life, I became more and more strongly opposed to those spiritual beverages. Experience has made me an opponent of vegetarianism, and like Richard Wagner, who converted me, I cannot recommend seriously enough that all spiritual natures give up alcohol entirely. Water is enough. I prefer places where there are opportunities all around you to drink out of running fountains. Nietzsche in the
Okay, stop here for a second. So he says something interesting. He says, on the one hand, beer makes me really sick and lethargic, and I cannot work if I drink. On the other hand, if I do drink, I can drink like a sailor. So in a sense, he says, no half measures. You know, if you're going to drink, and sit down and drink properly. Yeah, and this is very interesting. It's a very Nietzschean thought. You know, it's not the substance itself that is bad for you. It's how you approach it. It's how you deal with it. Alcohol can be stuff that weakens you and stuff that strengthens you. It depends what relationship you have with it. Yeah, but then it's also quite interesting when he says, I prefer places where there are opportunities all around you to drink out of running fountains. So fresh running water. Yeah. So I think there is something about this fluidity. He says a small glass accompanies me like a dog. This is, yeah. Now let's read a little bit of that. Could someone take over? Ben, could you read?
Yeah.
You want it bigger?
No, I can see it. A hearty meal is easier to digest than one that is too small. The first presupposition of a good digestion is that the stomach as a whole becomes active. You need to be aware of the size of your stomach for the same reasons. I would not recommend those protracted meals I call interrupted sacrificial feasts. Those at the table,
Whoa.
No snacking, no coffee. Coffee darkens things. Tea is only good in the morning, small quantities but strong. Tea is very bad for you and will make you sick all day if it is even a little too weak. Everyone has their own standards here. Sometimes between the narrowest and most delicate boundaries. In a very Agicante climate,
It's a hot climate, basically.
Climate, you should not start with tea. You should start an hour earlier with a cup of thick, oil-free cocoa. Sit as little as possible. Do not believe any idea that was not conceived while moving around outside, with your muscles in a celebratory mode as well. All prejudices come from the intestines. Sitting down, I have said it before, is a true sin against the Holy Spirit.
Thank you. Now, on some level, this is very contemporary. You know that there is a lot of talk now about how sitting down kills you, and people have standing desks. Did you ever try working while standing on your laptop? It is interesting. You start thinking in a different way. You know. Now, the point is not the advice he shares here, but that it's a book of philosophy. You know. You will not find Hegel or Kant or Wittgenstein or Spinoza writing about what they eat. No philosopher ever, when Kant writes his critique of pure reason, he doesn't discuss what they had for lunch. He just writes about his thoughts about the universal reason. Yeah? And all philosophers do that. Nietzsche turns it completely around. I mean, in what other philosophy book you will find a discussion on whether to eat a big meal or a small meal, and how that relates to the sort of ideas you're going to have? Because he says if you're going to have stodgy food, you're never going to become a good philosopher. You're always going to end up a Hegelian idealist philosopher. Yes?
But then it's kind of like, as far as I understand it, it's not about the bad philosopher, but it's a particular philosopher, and therefore a particular artist.
If he is trying to tell us how to get out of this idealistic way of thinking. And what is the idealistic way of thinking? Is the one that puts the architect above the builder. Is the one that puts the lecturer above the technician. Is the one that puts ideas above deeds and making. Yeah. Now, it's interesting that around the same time when Nietzsche is writing that, there is another person who writes some crazy stuff, and his name is Karl Marx, and he happens to live in London, about 10 minutes walk from where we are, because he used to live in Soho, in Greek Street. Marx then, in his very famous thesis on Feuerbach, says, until now, he says, and that's a quotation, until now, philosophers only interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it. He basically said the same thing. He says, until now, philosophers only dealt with ideas. They dealt with thoughts, with concepts. The point is not to develop another concept. The point is to change the world as it is. Yeah? That's very similar to what Nietzsche is saying when he says, if you want to think, start from what you eat. Yeah? So there is this shift happening in that. You can see a little bit of that in Marx, you can see it now in Nietzsche, and this is a reaction against idealism. For the last 2,000 years, we've been, all of us, in different ways, idealists. We put ideas above being. Now, one of the greatest ideas is the idea of Christianity. Yeah, or that's an idea that had a massive impact on loads and loads, on so many lives, on so many faiths. And this is also a form of idealism, to say that there is a God which is outside of us, somewhere out there, God who knows everything, who controls everything, is exactly like idealism. So the structure of idealism that was developed by Plato and the Greek philosophers of the 5th century BC, that puts logic and reason above experience and sensations, creates this hierarchical structure, finds its corresponding moment in the Judeo-Christian tradition. It puts God above human beings, above mortals. Yeah? So, in a sense, Christianity and the Greek philosophical tradition are not at odds with each other. They both are kind of forms of idealism. Nietzsche is saying, you remember we spoke about it, I think last semester, that Nietzsche was saying, God is dead, which means we now know in the 19th century, in the age of technology, in the age of steam engines, telescopes, and microscopes, we know that there is no God. We already found out about it. Believing in God is a kind of absurd anachronism, but we don't take it seriously enough. We don't really think through the consequences of living in the world without God. In the world without God, there's no point in praying. There's no point in trying to be good, in trying to be like Jesus. These are completely meaningless things because none of that is real. Yeah. So don't start from teaching your children, how to tell good from bad, how to be a nice person, how to be charitable, how not to lie, because all these ideals, yeah, they are based on something that does not exist. There is no God. There are also no ideals. Better teach your children how to eat properly, yeah, and you will have a better chance of somehow giving them a sort of a chance in life, as they say. Do you want to have a break? Yes. Okay, 5 minutes. The canteen is just here, so 10 minutes, okay? 10 minutes. But be here at 10 past 12.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here? Why we are doing this? Why we are doing this? Not because of the diet Nietzsche proposes. It's not about the food. It's not about whether you eat German food or Italian food. It's about something deeper than that. It's about a certain principle Which is, and what is the principle Nietzsche is talking about? It's all jokes and sarcasm, as Julie was saying, and yet there is something deadly serious in what Nietzsche here is talking about. I want you to get the serious. I want you also to get that the only way you can talk about this very serious thing is through this very joking, sarcastic way of delivering. So, are you ready? Is everyone here? Okay, so it's not about the food. What is it about? What is it really about? What do you think Nietzsche is telling you? Okay, this is what it is. This is what he's saying. Anyone?
Surrounding yourself by the conditions that are going to make you think, that are going to make you stronger, that you're going to be.
And what are these conditions?
The conditions that are in accordance to your
food, your environment.
But where do you find it? Is it about what you read? Is it about where you get your education?
It's in your gut. The environment, the weather, the food.
He says, and this is the takeaway, as they say in America, in the States, the takeaway is, yes, is, it's not about the food. This is the takeaway. Okay, get it? See what I've done here? The takeaway is begin with the body. Don't begin with the head. It's not about what school you went to. It's not about whether you were privately educated or you went to some kind of inner city comprehensive. That's not what will determine who you are. What will determine who you are is the body. Whatever.
No, I was asking.
What?
I'm sorry. I was just asking if she agreed or disagreed.
About the body, the comprehensive.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I was asking you if you were agreeing or disagreeing.
I think it's a great theory. I don't think it's true.
What Nietzsche is saying is that we spent 2,000 years honing and developing the mind. Because we place, what do you learn in school? Maybe that will help. Alexander. Maybe that will help because the example of the architect obviously can't. But maybe that will do better. In school, we maybe spend 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week doing physical exercises. And many hours doing algebra, French, and Latin, or whatever. And so basically, you can say how much time in school you spend on the mind and how much on the body. And it looks like much more time is going on the mind and less on the body. You could imagine another kind of school, a school that really pays much more attention to what you eat, to what you breathe, what you drink. There could be another form of education that puts much more emphasis on the body. Let's say
Steiner school.
Steiner schools, yeah.
If you can afford it.
Exactly.
That's
But just interesting how.
Even they do grants.
I know, but I mean,
It's not
this is-
publicized, but they do.
I think the whole discussion is like when he's just talking about his food, it's like, yes. and-
Sorry?
When was he living? I can't remember.
Oh, you mean historically?
Yeah.
Or where?
When?
When? Well, he wrote that in 18 1883, 1884.
Now there have been so many poor people around who never had any food. It's like, I don't know,
Well,
it seems like a luxury problem.
sorry?
It seems like a luxury problem. But isn't
Oh.
it like we have a lot of poor people now? What's interesting, we have the same problem. There are poor people, but look at the food that is affordable and what's in that food. So it's not a luxury problem. The problem is what the government.
No, Mariam, you are right, because it's a luxury to have problems. The ability to have problems is a luxury. The ability to be a philosopher is a luxury. The ability to be an artist is a luxury. Yeah, these are all luxuries. And of course, there can be a situation when you just need to put something in your stomach because without that you will die. And then it's not a question, should it be Italian cuisine or German cuisine? It just needs to be some food in your stomach. But that is not the question he's dealing with. He's saying, very often you have a choice. Now, if you don't have a choice, then really you are in a different mode. You're not talking about how to become an artist. You're talking about how the hell I'm going to survive until tomorrow. And then probably, what? No. Then it's a different question. But, one second. There can be also a situation in which you are not starving. You do have a choice. You have a choice whether to maintain your life and your body in one way or in another. And of course, this is a luxury. Yeah, of course, there will be always someone for whom this choice is not available. Yes, Julie.
I was just thinking that my personal takeaway from it might be that he might not be the first, but he's really reflecting upon his identity. So the same as religion, as he's saying we don't need God, we also might not need the dishes, whatever society tells you to do in the environment you're living in. So he suggests to think for yourself.
I think you're already onto something. That's absolutely right. He basically says, and what you need to have in the back of your mind is the original statement of Nietzsche we discussed earlier: God is dead. God is dead, and that means that all this energy we spent learning the Bible, on theology, on praying, on trying to be more like Jesus, all we don't need any of that. So the question is, okay, if we don't need to read the Bible anymore because the Bible is really completely meaningless book, what should we do? And Nietzsche says, well, start with digestion. Instead of, make that your new theology. Put as much thinking and effort and energy into what you eat as what you used to put into worshiping this meaningless God. Yeah, and then see what happens. So, this is the really serious point, that in a world without God, in a world in which ideals don't have the upper hand, which is the world he describes for us. He says, this is the world we are in. We're just thrown into this environment. We don't really know why. We don't know for what reason. We're not going to be resurrected into some kind of great afterlife. This is all you have. This is it, It's very materialist. Now what do we do? The question is, in a world without God, but also in a world without clear ideas about what is good and what is bad, and what makes a good artwork? In the past, there was the ideal of beauty. Yeah? So, if your art was beautiful, it was automatically good. Yeah? But beauty is just another ideal. So, okay, but if we want to throw all these ideals out of the window, because we can see that or at least Nietzsche can see, that all ideals are bankrupt. How do we start making a good artwork? And Nietzsche says, well, we have to start from the stomach. Yeah, that is the serious point. So that the one thing we somehow managed to forget about in the last 1,000 years is the body. Now Nietzsche is not the first who says that. Baruch Spinoza, who lived about 150 years before Nietzsche, and he lived in Holland, in Denmark, he said, we still don't know what the body is capable of. You know, he was living after Descartes in the nascent period of the scientific revolution. He was himself a polisher of lenses. He made lenses for telescopes and was very good at that. So he knew that the human mind is capable of amazing things. There were already microscopes. You could look at a drop of water and see the whole world of life there. And he said that that's all very well. We know a lot what the mind can do. We still have no idea what the body is capable of. And it's in Nietzsche you get the same sense that we need to readdress this balance. We need to get the rights of the environment and the body to allow them to claim something in the way we think. So the next point he's making is that is the question of location and climate. And here he says, nobody is free to live everywhere, and someone with great tasks that require all his energy has particularly limited options here. The influence of climate on metabolism, inhibiting it or speeding it up, is so significant that a bad choice of location or climate can not only alienate someone from his task, but can keep him from it altogether. He never comes face to face with it. Just list the places where there are and have been brilliant people, where wit, refinement, and malice were components of happiness, where genius has almost necessarily felt itself at home. They all have superbly dry air. Paris, Provence, Florence, Jerusalem, Athens. So he makes here another, he says, the first thing to think about is what you eat. The second question is where you live. Think very carefully, where, and it's an interesting question, where should you live to make better art? Now someone might say it doesn't matter, I make all my art in my head. I can be anywhere. But that's precisely how Nietzsche suggests we shouldn't be thinking. He says, where you live will have a massive impact on the way you make art. And you know, I think it's very true. I think if you live, for instance, in a pleasant, warm climate, the desire to make art immediately diminishes. Yeah. Because it's just too nice. You can go to the beach. You know, why go to the studio if you can go to the beach?
Maybe that's the art.
Maybe, yes. And he says, you know, choose to live in a place with dry, crisp air. That somehow, for whatever reason, becomes important to him. Paris, Provence, Florence, Jerusalem, Athens, definitely not London, definitely not Berlin. You know,
Berlin now.
Sorry?
Maybe Berlin now.
Maybe Berlin now. But he says there is something in this. He connects the idea or the notion of genius to a location. That's the point here. Not whether he is right or wrong in his sort of assessment of climate, but the point is that he says climate has a massive contribution to the making of one's mind. Yeah, you know this. You know the "you are what you eat" thing. This is Nietzsche. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to zoom forward a little bit. So the two first points he speaks about is food and the place where you live, and then. So here, could someone read to us in the third section? I would just like to read from the beginning up to here. Timo, could you do that?
What? Choice?
Up to here.
Choice of nutrition. It's the choice of climate and location. The third thing that you should not get wrong at any cost is the choice of your own mode of recuperation. Here too, the boundaries of the permissible, which is to say the useful, are increasingly narrow according to the extent to which the spirit is sui generis. In my case, reading as a whole is a way of recuperating.
What is recuperating?
Recovery.
Huh?
Recovery.
Yeah, basically, what do you do for fun? How do you rest? How do you kick back?
Accordingly, it is one of the things that lets me detach from myself and walk on foreign disciplines and souls, who I do not take seriously anymore. Reading recuperates me even from my own seriousness. When I am hard at work, you will not find me with books. I try not to be around anyone who is talking or even thinking.
Okay, stop here, please. So, here we have the three basic principles of how to become what one is. First, think about what you eat. Second, think where you live. Third, think how you spend your free time. So, this is very important. How do you spend your free time? Do you just spend hours online on Facebook? Or do you go to watch a film? Or you go for a walk? Or you read a book? And Nietzsche says these things are crucially important. So the question is, what gives you more power? What gives you more strength? When do you feel more energized? If you spend a couple of hours browsing, or if you spend a couple of hours walking. Yeah? And if you are able to identify what gives you more energy, then you become more in control of your destiny. Yeah? If I know that 2 hours of walking somehow prepares me better for the work ahead, then I have a choice. You know, I can spend 2 hours updating my status, or I can get out of the house. Now, again, the point here is not so much this kind of sage advice, but that he is not saying what books you should be reading. He is not saying what philosophers you should be studying. He says, how do you become an artist? How do you become a philosopher or a writer? These are the things you begin with. Food, habitat, free time. Get these right, and the rest, he says, will follow. Now, could someone read this for us?
Each of these choices of location of location in planning and of the recuperation is governed by an instinct for self-preservation that is most clearly expressed as an instinct for self-defense. Not seeing much, not hearing much, not letting many things come close. This is the first principle of the elevatorness, and the first proof that you are not just a piece of chance, but rather than a necessity.
So he is saying here, what do you think he is saying here? What makes you clever?
Be yourself.
What makes you clever?
Choice.
What choice?
Good choice.
Which is what? Sorry?
Don't be influenced by others.
Well, he said, you are not born clever. Cleverness is the result of choices you make about your food, about where you live, and how you spend your free time. That's what makes you clever. Now, this is also quite revolutionary, quite surprising, because he is not saying that you are clever if you read the library. You know, if you read all the classics in the original language of Greek and Latin, if you read all the philosophers, or if you learn mathematics or algebra, none of this makes you clever. What does make you clever is what you eat, where you live, what you do for fun. What do you think about that? Does it make sense? Why?
Because you're going to be just yourself and not following what others tell you to do.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. Yes. Did you hear that? You want to repeat it?
Because you're just going to be yourself with your principles and not being what the others want you to be.
That's very good, yeah, because in this way, if you follow Nietzsche's advice, you connect with your own fate. You somehow maximize your own potential, the potential of your own body. You learn about what your own body is capable. Yeah, and you know, we have very different bodies. In this room, one of us might be incredibly gifted runner. Others might be very bad at running, but might be good at, I don't know, swimming or jumping or just lying flat on the ground. But how do you know? You know, he says it's not about trying to run as fast as someone else. It's about finding what is the right way of being for you. It can be running for someone, it can be walking for someone else. Someone else needs probably to live in water most of the time, and someone else should never get out of bed. But you need to find out for yourself what is the right thing for you, what gives you the most amount of energy, the most amount of power. And you see, this is the clincher. The crucial thing for Nietzsche is the will to power. How do you make yourself more powerful? And what is happening here is that he somehow realigns where is the most important thing in life. The most important thing is not to be wise, is not to be pious or a saint, is not to be good, is not to be right, is to be powerful. Yet the will to power becomes the key. Now, in his other book, which is called Genealogy of Morals, he has a story that I might be able to show you. So it's a little bit similar. I want to read this as well. Could someone read to us from a little bit, from here, but let us return until here. Can you see that? Is it visible? No? It's bigger? Okay, but then I'm going to scroll down. So this is from the Genealogy of Morals. Could someone read, but loudly, so we can all hear that? Could someone read?
But like as we said, the problem of the other origin of the good as convinced by the man of resentment, demand this solution. That lambs dislike great birds of prey does not seem strange. All it gives no ground for reproaching birds of prey for bearing of little lambs. And if the lambs say among themselves, these birds of prey are evil, and whoever is this like a bird of prey, but rather is opposite, a lamb, would he not be good? There is no reason to find fault with this institution of ideal, except perhaps that the birds of prey might view it a little ironically and say, we don't dislike them at all. These good little lambs, we even love them. Nothing is more tasty than a tender lamb.
Now, it's very short, but I think it's a fantastic image. Let me open it up for you a little bit. So, the question Nietzsche is asking in the beginning is, let's talk about the problem of the good. What is the good? Well, where the notion of the good comes from? The book is called Genealogy of Morals. What is genealogy? Genealogy. Genes. What is the genealogy? Its origin, history. Yeah. So, history of morals. What the title tells you, history of morals.
That there is a history, obviously, of good and bad.
It tells it, that good and bad have a history. What? How can they have history if they are universal values?
Made up.
It's the, I like this, you like this.
We will see about
It's
that.
the his story, which is God,
Yes.
of morals. So it's a story that was invented and then taken for granted.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So already the title is very provocative. It says, basically it's like saying, well, the history of God. Meaningless. No, God cannot have a history. God is eternal. Yeah. History of morals. Morals are universal. You're not saying that there was time once when it was morally right to kill someone or to steal. No, stealing and killing were always immoral. Yeah, that is the general notion. Why these things are important. But Nietzsche says, look, these things have a history, but we tend to not to think about it. So let us return to the origin of the good. And here is the example he sets up. So imagine a little field where lambs are sort of frolicking around in the grass, chomping away, living happily with their curly, cuddly, lovely little lambs, What, bleating? They do the bleat, yeah? So we've got this idyllic pastoral scene with the lambs sort of playing, completely innocently. Now, then on the top of the mountain, there are these eagles, the massive, big creatures, with the claws and yeah. So the eagle, they see the lamb, they fall down from the sky like a rock. They grab this little lamb, pierce it with their claws, lift it to the sky, to the top of the mountain, and devour it, tear it to pieces, tear this little lamb to pieces while it is still alive, and it is dying in agony, and then they feed bits of this lamb to their offspring. That is what's happening. Is that okay so far? Yeah, you with me? Okay. Now, Nietzsche says, imagine what the lambs are thinking to themselves. The lambs are thinking, look at these birds of prey. They come down and they kill us. They cause us huge amount of suffering and pain. They really are not that nice, They don't give us any pleasure. They only give us pain and suffering. They must be bad. Why the birds of prey are bad? They're bad because they cause us pain and suffering. That makes them evil. Okay, fine. So the lambs are, the birds that are in the sky, they are the evil ones. So the lambs also say among themselves, well, you know what? So those of us who are a little bit like the birds of prey, like the eagles, they're also not so good. So only the lambs that are as removed from the eagles, they are the best ones. So if you have some eagle-like tendencies in your behavior as a lamb, you are already a little bit like the eagle, yeah, and you're not so good. But if you are a really pure lamb, you will be not like an eagle at all. Do you get it? Yeah? Do you get how Nietzsche is showing to us that this society of lambs takes this notion of the bad eagles and says, well, clearly, look at that. These birds of prey are evil. And whoever is least like a bird of prey, but rather its opposite, a lamb, would he not be good? Yeah? So the eagles are evil and the lambs are good. And suddenly you have a moral system. Yeah? Now what this moral system is based on? Is based on the simple fact that eagles come from the sky to kill the lambs and eat them. Yeah? So the lambs developed a whole moral code based around this notion of the eagles coming down and killing them. So that's all very well. And Nietzsche doesn't object to that at all, besides saying that it's interesting though, he says that this moral code doesn't apply, the eagles themselves, the birds of prey, they don't see it like that at all. You know? They don't say, oh, we are the evil birds and the lambs are good because we go and kill them. But they also don't say, we are the good ones and the lambs are bad. They just say, oh, the lambs are so tasty. And that's how he wants you to be. You know? He shows that, in this very simple example, Nietzsche shows that morality, the notion of good or bad, is based on what is good or bad for you. It's based on what is good or bad for your survival. So he's not arguing with that. He says, yes, of course, you make some choices for your survival. That's fine. Don't confuse it with morals. Yeah, you need to protect yourself as a lamb. If you are a lamb, you need to protect yourself against the birds. That's fine. Do whatever it takes. Yeah, but don't confuse that with the idea that the birds are, for whatever reason, are evil and you are good. The birds, they just do what birds do. For them, you are just very tasty. They cannot help it. But there is another deeper point here, which is the bird of prey is not making any decision to go after the lamb. The bird of, in a sense, Nietzsche says there is no such thing as a bird of prey. All there is this force, there is this power. And the power is to grasp and to kill and to eat and to slaughter. Yeah. So this power takes the shape of a bird. Yeah? But the power comes before the bird. Because we think usually idealistically, we normally say, oh, here is a bird, and then the bird decides to go after the lamb. Nietzsche says no. The only thing there is will to power. The bird has the will to power will take the shape of a bird. In the same way that I have my two cats, and whenever there is, let's say, a fly in the house, there are house cats, indoor cats. But wherever there is a fly in the house, they go after the fly, and they're not even trying to kill it. They just want to play with it, But after a while, they, oh, my friend died, My friend just doesn't play with me anymore. I'm all alone again. But I think when you watch a cat with its prey, so you kind of see Nietzsche's point. It's not that oh, bad cat, why do you have to kill it? It is this force. There is this violent, aggressive, alive force. And the force can take a shape of a cat. It can take the shape of an eagle. It can take various different shapes. But at the core, at the bottom, there is this will to fly, to exercise, to maximize your potential, to maximize your energy. Now, when we'll go back to Ecce Homo. That basically what Nietzsche's concern. How to be this bird of prey. Yeah? So, the demand of strength, that it should not express itself as strength, that it should not be a desire to overcome, a desire to throw down, a desire to become master, a thirst for enemies and resistances and triumphs, is just as absurd as to demand of weakness, that it should express itself as strength. So he says, it is absurd to ask a cat not to kill. Because there is no cat as such, there is the killing instinct that takes the shape of this cute furry animal. But really, it is just the killing instinct. To ask of it not to kill and not to exercise its power is just as absurd as to ask of weakness to be powerful. Yeah? So, what Nietzsche is putting on the table here is that he, in a sense, turns the whole metaphysical way of thinking upside down. He suggests that we don't think of ourselves as a sort of a fully formed individual. Here I am, I was given the name Daniel at birth, my parents told me such and such, and as this entity, I go through life basically unchanged. Yeah? Nietzsche says, no, you are a will to power. And how much power you have depends on where you live, on what you eat, on how you spend your time. You're not a fixed entity. You are like, you remember we spoke when we read Deleuze and Guattari, we spoke about the four milieus. It's a bit like that. You're not a fixed entity. You are, there is no you as such. There is a force. There is power, and how much power there is depends on various external circumstances. If I put myself in an environment that helps me be more powerful, I will have more strength. If I am in an environment that makes me weaker, I will have less strength. But there is no I. There is no subjectivity as such, because the notion of the I or the subject is itself one of these idealistic prejudices that Nietzsche says we should try to shake off. Does it make sense? Or am I kind of losing it? Anyone has any thoughts about it?
How is this all taken by people that are, because this all kind of links up with now and all the problems with usually in the climate, foods, chemicals. Yeah. How seriously was this taken at the time, and what was its influence from then on in those kind of contexts?
It is, I don't know really how to answer this question. In terms of the reception Nietzsche received in his time, during his own life, he was not very well known. His books became incredibly popular in the 20th century, mostly because, as Julie was discussing last time, because the Nazi Party took Nietzsche as kind of the philosopher of the right. But I mean, I'm not sure that's exactly what you're asking. Is that what you're asking?
I'm just asking, like Freud became like so influential in.
But I don't know. I don't know if it is the right.
Because there are people that believe that there is something much more sinister going on now with food and how it's controlling people and cancer, diabetes, all of these things. If this was taken much more seriously, just what I'm kind of getting at.
Speaking of Austria and the empire at that time, I know that it was really in the coming, but only beyond the intellectual, only beyond the emperors too. So they traveled, especially because of the climate, in order to keep them healthy and so on. So I think it was really at that time that people were reflecting
to food, obviously forced them to think about these things much more seriously anyway, which I think people with allergies do have to do. And food does affect you tremendously.
But you know, this is what he's teaching.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's very...
You know, what you talked about food, for instance, doesn't have to be food. It can be certain ideas or ideologies. It's to think for yourself. The Nazis took the Übermensch model, and people needed a daddy. They not needed a daddy. They didn't want to make their own decisions, and it resulted in a catastrophe. Now you've got the government who is telling you to eat certain foods because they are great for you. Yet again, you have a daddy or mommy, but are you listening to your body? And then what I think the deeper thing you have to explore is the structure that is put in place to actually access something that is good for you. And that can be food, that can be education, housing. So it goes much deeper than food. It is about it's about knowing himself, which is saying this is the idea.
Because there are nutritionists, like say in this country, that would say that a huge percentage of people have really serious indigestion problems that lead on to these things, and yet they continue to eat very, very badly.
Sorry?
And
What do you want to say?
That is not about
It's not about food. Correct. What is it about?
It's about
metaphor.
yeah, exactly.
But it's also not about. It's not also not a metaphor. It's not about food, but it is also not a metaphor. It is very direct. But you also need to read between the lines. Yeah. And what you? Sorry, Maria.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Very good. Yeah. When you read between the lines, basically this is it. That's where he really tries to summarize it. Could someone read the highlighted section to us? Anyone? Didn't read yet? Yes, please.
At this point, a more general reflection is called for. I would ask why I have been talking about all these petty matters that people usually think are not worth worrying about. I'm not doing myself any good, particularly if I am listening to take the great causes. All great causes. Answer. These petty concerns, nutrition, location, climate, recuperation, all has a history of selfishness, are far more important than all the concepts people have considered important so far. This is exactly where people have to start re-educating themselves.
Okay, so what do you hear him saying? What do you hear Nietzsche saying here?
It's about being yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's about
it's not taking everything for granted which flies into your hands.
He says this really kind of petty things that no one ever speaks about, which are nutrition, location, climate, recuperation. These petty things are far more important than all the concepts people have considered important so far. Yeah? The green corner. How? Can you explain?
Because there lies the danger, and that's also something we're not aware of.
Exactly. Yeah. That's actually a very good point. I think I didn't think about it this way, but that's good. Yeah, that while we are obsessed with ideas, and we, pragmatists fight with idealists and positivists, argue with empiricists, everyone sort of forgets that what really matters is what you eat, where you sleep, what you breathe, what you do with your time. These things have much more importance to the real life. The things that humanity used to think seriously about are not even realities, just figments of the imagination, or to put it more strongly, lies, from the bad instincts of sick natures who were harmful in the deepest sense. All the concepts of good, of God, the soul, virtue, sin, the beyond, truth, eternal life. Now, all these concepts which Nietzsche holds in the highest contempt, where are they coming from? The good, God, soul, virtue. Who is more virtuous? The little lambs or the eagles? Yeah, so where all these notions are coming from? He says, well, we developed all these concepts as part of our survival strategies. Yeah? In order to survive in the wilderness, in order to defend ourselves against the wild beasts or other people, we had to invent these ideas that we are the good ones and over there they are bad. When we go to war, when we do, we don't only fight for resources, wheat and bread and gold or whatever. We also fight the bad people because we are the good people. And it was evident, for instance, with the war on terror, so that Bush began after the 9/11. Yeah, the argument was not only that we fight, certain armies or groupings or whatever, or defend ourselves. It was also a war of good against bad. Yeah, it was also a very clearly a moral crusade. Then all these things come into play. Freedom and justice and virtue, and then you will immediately have the argument that the people on the other side, they are monsters, they are non-human, they are abomination, and we are, of course, the virtuous. Nietzsche says, well, it is the same old little lambs argument, that the eagles are evil because they come and eat us. They just come and eat you. They're not really evil. But you see, in a sense, the example of the lambs also shows you how idealism happens. That the point at which idealism appears is when you need to somehow find a moral justification to the fact that you are simply weak. You are weak. Someone else is stronger than you, is oppressing you, is bullying you, or conquering you, or beating you up. And instead of dealing with that, you find a way to say, well, actually, that's what makes me good. I am good because I'm not like the bad person who is bullying me. So that's how the genealogy of morals, Nietzsche saying there, he says, this morality that we hold in such high regard as one of the greatest achievements of our Western civilization, this morality of ours is the morality of slaves, is the morality of the oppressed, of people who don't have the strength or the courage or the wits to get up and fight or hide or do something. So they rather be slaves, they rather be oppressed, and virtuous, good, pious, holy, That's how it happens. That's where this notion of idealism ultimately is coming out of. For Nietzsche, it is coming out of what he calls slave mentality. Yeah. Now, as you can see, guys, he's playing very dangerous games here. Yeah, because he really seemed to be saying that it is absolutely fine to be the bully. It is absolutely fine to have strength. So this is complicated and difficult. Yeah. But it is also very interesting how he makes you realize that all these values we hold in such high regard, the values of virtue and being good, and they actually come out of weakness. They emerge out of submission, out of slavery. Yeah. So that's why I think Nietzsche is such a fascinating figure to get to know and be in a dialogue with. Now, I have two more sections I want to look at. That I think is really nice. We just read a little bit of that. Could someone read to us? Would someone read? Yes, please.
Beware of picturesque people. Life has become easy for me, and easiest when it is demanding the most difficult things. Anyone who saw me during 70 days this fall, when working without a break, I created things of only the highest caliber, things that nobody will surpass or anticipate, with responsibility for all the millennia to come. Nobody who saw me then would have noticed a single trace of tension, but rather an overflowing freshness and cheerfulness.
Let's just stop here. I really like this paragraph because I think he really speaks here about what kind of frame of mind you need to be to make a work of art. So for all of you out there, artists, this is it. What does it mean, beware of picturesque people? Who are the picturesque people? Okay, do you know what he means? So, you know the typical sort of notion of what an artist should look like. The artist should wear a beret, yeah, smoke a pipe, that's being picturesque. Yeah, he says, beware of people, beware of poses, beware of colorful characters. It's interesting to ask why, what's so wrong with it? But I think Nietzsche's hunch is that these people are phony. They wear a mask. It's a masquerade. He says,
maybe it's not to have preconceived ideas of something that.
Good. Yeah, it is that.
Or the notion of putting energy in being different.
Yeah. It's a little bit what you probably remember Deleuze and Guattari say in the introduction to Thousand Plateaus. He says, well, sometimes it's just nice to talk like everyone else, to save the energy, and you can see how closely they are, how close they are to Nietzsche. And he says, when I was working my hardest, doing my most significant writing, nobody who saw me then would have noticed a single trace of tension, but rather an overflowing freshness and cheerfulness. So Nietzsche says, don't just go, it's so important what I'm doing, it's such a difficult, task. There has to be some kind of lightness of touch. I never ate more happily. I never slept better. I do not know any other way of handling great tasks than as play. I think this really should be written above every artist studio. Whatever it is you do, you need to do it playfully. You need to do it as play. Why do you think that is? How do you understand the point of that? Why it is important to be playful in what you do? The experience?
You have to enjoy it.
Because the work itself has to give you joy. You don't do it for a great reward afterwards. It's not to say, okay, well, the painting is a slog, but maybe by the end of it, I will have a big exhibition, and then I will sell a lot of work, and then no. It is, the joy is in the making. If the making doesn't bring you joy, you are not doing it right, or you are doing the wrong thing. Yeah, the making of your art has to be the joyful thing, not the result. That's how you become who you are. Yeah. So the becoming itself, that's what he says. The joy is not in the reward. The joy is not in the winning the Turner Prize or whatever. The joy is in the making. If you live according to this Nietzschean ideal, You don't care how many prizes you win, because you already won the greatest prize, that you get to practice your art joyfully. The slightest compulsion, a gloomy look, any sort of harsh tone in the throat, all these are objections to a person, and even more to his work. Yeah? So, he says, be very attuned to yourself, and if you see yourself tense, if you see yourself not enjoying it, and it's interesting that he says you will notice it by your, by this tension in your throat. Yeah, so it's not about ideas. We talk about the way the body itself tells you when you don't enjoy doing it, and then he says, well, then just stop, because something is wrong here. Yeah, so you cannot have any nerves. Even suffering from solitude is an objection. I have only ever suffered from multitudes. Yeah, that's very similar to Sartre, but he says that hell is other people. Yeah, remember, you know that from Sartre. Yeah, that I think where it's coming from. Hell is other people. Even suffering from solitude is an objection. I have only ever suffered from multitudes. At an absurdly early age, when I was 7, I already knew that no human word would ever reach me. Has anyone ever seen me sad about this? And I still have the same affable approach to everyone. I even treat the lowest with distinction. There is never any hint of arrogance or secret loathing. Whoever I hate can tell that I hate him. My mere existence infuriates anything with bad blood in its body. My formula for human greatness is amor fati. We spoke about it last week. What amor fati means? Amor, love, fati, faith. Amor fati, love your fate. If your fate is that no human word would ever reach you, if your fate is that you are not like everyone else, love your fate. If your fate is that you are different from everyone else, you have two choices. You can either try to become like everyone else, or you can love what you are. So, for instance, I read that I think it is in Russia, but I think in some other countries as well, there are surgeries for children who are shorter than average, to extend their limbs, to extend artificially their legs, so they will not grow up to be small people. Yeah. Now, you have a choice. Yeah. It says, if you are born small, you can try to be average height, or you can accept that, or you can love what you are. Yeah. It's a choice. Yeah. And it's absolutely a real choice that every one of us, regardless of the height, can have some traction with. Yeah. Because, don't we all, on some level, moisturize, color our hair, go on a diet, And Nietzsche kind of says, I don't think he's saying it's all pointless and meaningless, because some of it can give you more power, which would be a good thing. But he says, you always have a choice. You can hear how existentialist he is. We know that Sartre is existentialist. Sartre is saying, whatever situation you are in, even if you are a prisoner in a concentration camp, you still have a choice how to live your life. You still have a choice in each moment until the very last, how to take this very moment. Yeah? No matter how harsh it is, there is a choice. And in a sense, that's what also Nietzsche is saying. He says, you always have a choice. You can try to change your fate, and that will require a lot of energy on your part, or you can love your fate. So, my formula for human greatness is amor fati. Why is it important? Because love your fate. What do you think people were told to love before Nietzsche? Love God, of course. But if not God, love your country, love your parents, love the flag, love the hymn, love the, the motherland. These are the things we're usually told to love. Yeah? First God, then the country, then the chairman or the national anthem. These are the things. And Nietzsche is saying, no, love your fate. So you see the reversal, the re-evaluation of all values that is happening here. That you do not want anything to be different, not forwards, not backwards, not for all eternity, not just to tolerate necessity, still less to conceal it. All idealism is hypocrisy towards necessity, but to love it. Well, let's just go to one last point. Yeah, I really like that. So maybe someone can read, there is one precious sentence here that I want to get to. All prevailing ideas. Could someone just read that? Yes?
All prevailing ideas about degrees of relationship are unsurpassable pieces of physiological absurdity. The Pope deals in these absurdities even today. People are least related to their parents. It would be the most extreme sign of vulgarity to be related to your parents. Higher natures have their origins infinitely further back. Collecting, economizing, accumulating has gone on longest for their sake. Great individuals are the oldest. I do not understand it, but Julius Caesar could be my father, or Alexander had Dionysus incarnate. As I am writing this, postman is bringing me ahead Dionysus.
Okay. So you can tell what sentence I think is the most interesting here. People are least related to the parents. It would be the most extreme sign of vulgarity to be related to your parents. How do you hear this? What do you think he says by that? And if you are not related to your parents, whom you are related to?
To yourself.
It helps. It really helps because it can be your own.
Well, yes, I think it does really help. I agree with you. He says, look, what you've been told, that you have this inseparable bond with your family, it is another form of idealism. It's like allegiance to the church, or to the country, or to the flag, or to some one or other despotic regime. It is just fiction. So yes, your parents, they have something to do in the biological production of an organism. But that has nothing to do with where your roots really are. Your roots could be with artists with whom you have a continuous dialogue, or with Julius Caesar, or with the place where you live, or the water that you drink. So I agree that it is very liberating. I think especially if you the kind of person who feels that your deepest commitment and allegiance is to your friends, and somehow friends is the real family, and the family is kind of a sort of thing you carry through life. It's a sort of burden that you've never been given any choice in. But yes, and it's true. Sometimes people say that you don't choose your friends. Friends is the real destiny. With family, you can take it or leave it.
Like a boat.
Sorry?
It's like a boat.
Like?
Like a boat. Something that you carry.
The family.
Yeah.
Well, the point is that generally, the idealistic approach sees the family as the miniature country, as also the miniature model of the divinely organized universe. The father who is the head of the family is a little bit like the Pope who is the head of the church, is a little bit like the king who is the head of the country, And for Nietzsche, all of these models are based on the same idealistic premises, and we saw that at the very heart, at the very core of this idealism, when we really drill down on where these notions are coming from, is the morality or the philosophy of the slaves, of the oppressed, of those who have no power or have no desire to have power. So, do we have to finish with something? So, yeah, I like that. I'm going to read that to you. He speaks here about my experiences with other people are all, without exception, to their credit. Even people everyone has bad experience with. I tame every bear. I make clowns modest. During the 7 years I taught Greek to the senior class of the Basel Pedagogium, I never had to punish anyone. The laziest students worked hard for me. I am always able to deal with accidents. I have to be unprepared in order to be in control of myself. Yeah, so I think this is quite good. If you have to be unprepared to be prepared. Yeah, there is a kind of, well, I particularly like it when he says that I never had to punish anyone as I was a teacher of Greek. And Greek is notoriously difficult language to learn and to teach. It has a lot of memorizing. It's basically all about learning irregular verbs by heart. I never had to punish anyone because everyone was just trying their hardest in my classes. And I think we can finish here. I think maybe that was enough. So let me just finish by saying that if someone can find out whether we can have a session on Tuesday, and if not, it's not a big deal. We can have it the next. We will have it some other time because I think we cancelled one session when I was ill. We're going to have more sessions after the end of term, and at least next week, if it happens, we will have our own room, this 301. Okay, so thank you very much. A few people wanted to speak to me, so you can stay behind and have a chat. Yeah. Thank you.